I know you were raised in Central Hills, Rhode Island.
Central Falls.
Central Falls, Rhode Island. The youngest of 6 children?
Next to the youngest of 6 children.
5th of 6.
Yes.
Wow. At what point did you first realize you wanted to be an actor?
The point that I realized I wanted to be an actor was when I saw Cicely Tyson in the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. I believe it was in the early 70s. I was 7, 8 years old. And we were living on 128 Washington Street. And I remember at that time, the only shows that were on television was Sanford and Son, That's My Mama, Baby I'm Back, The Jeffersons, you know, which I loved. Any black images I held on to as just sacred, you know. But this image was different. It was more than just entertainment. To me, it was artistry. I was seeing a craftsperson at work aging from 18 to 105, and she looked like me. She looked like my mother. And I just knew that that's what I wanted to do with my life. It changed my whole perspective.
Now, I know you guys didn't get to share any scenes together in The Help, but were you ever able to tell Cicely what that performance meant to you?
Yeah, I did. At a party before The Help, I made a fool out of myself. By putting her hand on my face. I think, you know, my husband was with me, made a fool out of myself. But yeah, and she came to see me in Fences and called me after I had won the Tony Award, and her assistant called and said, I have Miss Tyson on the phone for you. Can you hold the line? And I was like, are you kidding me? And she said, the first thing she said is, she said, you weren't surprised, were you? And she said, listen, I know the road. And which is a powerful statement. It's a dark-skinned black actress in the 70s working. And before that, she was working in New York on stage. But she kept saying she knows the road. And she said, so she understands that if I achieved anything in my life, it's because of hard work. And I should be proud of myself.
So speaking of, how did your parents feel when you told them you wanted to be an actor?
Are you kidding me? They felt great. They felt fantastic. I mean, it's like my mom says. She says, I knew it wasn't an accountant, you know, but I just never had any issues with my family. My mom and dad grew up in St. Matthews, South Carolina. My dad had a 5th grade education. My mother has an 8th grade education. You know, they were born in one-room homes on Singleton Plantation in St. Matthews, South Carolina, and their dreams were in their kids. So their kids had any dreams, that was fantastic. And my dad died 5 years ago, pancreatic cancer. And I remember I was online Googling myself, which I do not recommend. But I went on IMDb, and someone who worked with my father at a department store in Rhode Island said, oh yes, I know Viola. My grandmother worked with her father at Ann and Hope, and he would always brag and said, my daughter wants to be an actress. I just randomly read that online as I was reading about how sad I looked and raggedy I am.
I was going to say, someone actually found something positive about themselves on Google.
Really. I took that. You know.
I'm impressed. So how do you get from Rhode Island to being an actor? And did you have any specific mentors along the way?
Lots. You know, I always marvel at people who say, I did it, hard work, myself, you know, raised myself, you know, for my own bootstraps. I always say you're telling a straight up lie. Because, you know, for me, I had to rely on mentors because I grew up in such poverty, which means that I grew up with no resources. I had no resources to get from what was in my head and heart, which was a dream, to seeing it to fruition. So I had to rely on the kindness of strangers. And that came in the form of parents, teachers, acting coaches, everything. I mean, we don't even have enough time in this session for me to honor all the people who helped me along the way. And I took every bit of help I could get because I really wanted it. I really wanted to get out, you know.
And I believe, was it Bernard Masterson, the director?
Bernard Masterson. Mm-hmm.
The director of the Young People's School for the Performing Arts in Rhode Island?
Yes, and he was also the head of the acting department at Salve Regina College in Rhode Island, and he saw me in a one-act play at Rhode Island State Drama Festival. I was very competitive when I was a kid. I've lost that competitive spirit. Now I've just been beaten down by the business, you know. But he saw me in a one-act play and said, you know, she has a lot of heart, but she needs technique. So he gave me a scholarship to the Young People's School of Performing Arts, and you know, I felt like I had won the lottery. I had to take 3 buses one way to get to the school and walk the last mile at 14. But I thought, that's all I have to do? 5 hours on the bus? No, I would be like 2 minutes on the bus. But at the time, and then I went to the school for an entire summer. That was the first time that someone really invested in me, that I felt like maybe I had something. I think that's the first time I really felt like I had something.
Well, surely getting into Juilliard must have felt like a pat on the back. And I know you spent 4 years there, and I know many actors who have attended there have very mixed feelings. It can range from, you know, everyone's very passionate about their time there.
Yeah,
what was your experience like?
Yeah, most people who leave that school are on Prozac now. I skipped the Prozac. I just became angry. But no, I'm not going to say anything negative about the school, because for me it was like, you know, when you're sick and you have to take the worst tasting medicine to get better. It tastes really, really bad going down, but it ultimately helps you. So when I first got into Juilliard, I was like, God, was I slick? You know, I was probably 170 pounds. I went to my audition with a big, oversized red sweater and a gold, purple, silver head wrap. And I did Moliere and Color Purple, I think I did. And I told him, you know, I don't have long, so you have to look at my audition because I got to get back home. So if you want me, you want me. If you don't, tell me now. Don't have that boldness now. But, you know, but after that, after I got in, then I realized how much work it takes in actually honing your craft. And that's when it deflated me a little bit, as it always does with any dream. People come here and they come off the bus or the plane and they think, oh gosh, I'm here, I'm finally here, the Hollywood sign, oh my God, I have an agent. They go to their first audition. They may get the first job or they may not, but they're sitting in the audition room with, you know, God, who knows, some famous actor, and they think, oh, Mom, I've made it. And then they, you know, you always see how hard it is, and that's when the challenge begins, and that's what happened at Juilliard. I really saw the challenges after that.
But you made it through all 4 years, which I know a lot of people don't.
Yeah. I was put on weight probation. I was put on dialect probation. I was going through it. You know, the southern, you know, Rhode Island, New England accent doesn't mix well with classical training. And then I gained probably 20 more pounds onto my already voluptuous frame. And in Juilliard, they very much have an idea of how every type fits into the grand scheme of the American theater. And I certainly didn't fit into a mold, so I had a lot of warnings in the 4 years. But I am proud of the fact that I made it.
Did you pick up any certain specific method that you use to this day or school of teaching?
No, I fly by, I don't fly by the seat of my pants, but I use anything that works. That's what I took from Juilliard. Anything that works. You know, I don't think that anyone should dictate to you what your process should be, because you don't know what's going to stimulate a character, open up, you know, the character for you. You know, emotional recall doesn't always work for me. It just doesn't, you know. I've tried it, and it really, you know, thinking about when your dog died when you were 8 years old, to just kind of tap into the loss of a loved one. I've done that on movie sets when I've just been lost, and movie sets are really particularly difficult. And it just hasn't worked. Sometimes it's something physical I have to do for my classical training. And I have to tell you, that works a lot for me. You know, breathing, you know, the whole jumping up and down and rib cage swing, even something like that helps me. And then sometimes just classical, technical stuff helps me. And sometimes it is emotional recall if it's a character that's close to my experience. But I rely on all of it. I pull out all the stops because I consider myself to now be an individual actor, not just a student acting for my mother in the front row, you know? So I rely on all of it.
So once you left Juilliard, how long was it before you started really breaking in as an actor? I mean, did you have representation right away?
I had representation before I graduated from Juilliard, which everyone did not recommend, but I said, are you kidding me? I'm not waiting until I graduate to get representation because I want to work now. I just have $50,000 in student loans. I want to get a job now. Of course, that didn't happen. But I have to tell you, when I got my first job out of school, you know, understudying a great actress who's now deceased, Denitra Vance, who
Saturday Night
was
Live.
in the original, that black girl in Saturday Night Live, and she was also in the original production of Colored Museum. Fantastic actress, and I was understudying her in a play called Marisol at the Public Theater, and once again I thought I had struck gold, just gold. And she at the time was suffering from breast cancer, had already had a mastectomy, and was going through chemotherapy during the day and performing the show at night. So I said, I know I'm going to have to go on, and I never went on once.
Really?
Which is a testament to her will. But anyway, $250 a week to me was a lot of money. This is in 93, 94.
Wow.
That was, for me, when you say break, that's my break.
Yeah.
That was my break, because that was my first job.
What was the process of getting the role? Was it just an open call, or you were submitted?
Well, I was submitted through my agency. That's the only way you can really, well, every actor here knows that that's the only way you can get a job. Unfortunately, you can't always rely on self-submitting yourself, especially nowadays. So I had an agent. J. Michael Bloom was my agent at the time. And they're no longer, they're defunct now, but yeah.
How were you able to land representation while you were still in college?
An agent at J. Michael Bloom, Mark Schlegel, came to see me in a play called Journey of the Fifth Horse, where I'd played a 70-year-old Russian woman. And he thought I had something. He said, I saw something in there. I was like, I don't know what you saw, but you saw something. And so he called me in, and you know, and one of the reasons why I signed with them is the same reason that I married my husband, of course, is because I felt like it was love. You know, it's the same way that happens with love when people just get you. And, you know, certainly an agent gets you if they're seeing you as a 70-year-old Russian woman and you're a black actress, you know, then they're really looking at the craft. They're looking beyond, you know, the whatever stereotypical role they can cast you in. he got me. And I think that that's how any relationship begins. And I felt like everything else after that would have been, meeting with CAA or ICM or Susan Smith at the time. I don't know if they're still around. Not that they called me, actually. Susan Smith wasn't the one. They weren't knocking on my door. But it wasn't, I didn't feel like I should sit and beg people to sign me when I had people who already were saying, we love you. And I was like, well, I love you too then.
And how amazing to find it at such a young age.
Yeah, 23. I was the oldest member of my class at Juilliard, though.
Really?
So, no, I was 28. Excuse me, I was 23 when I entered Juilliard and 28 when I left.
So was it your senior year that you got representation?
Senior year, yes. Yeah. Right before you graduate from Juilliard, you have the scenes, the actor presentations that you have to do, where you have to do 2 scenes and in front of casting directors and they basically pick you. Literally, after you finish your scene, you go up to the office, the main office of Juilliard Drama Division, and there's a paper that's folded with your name tacked onto a board, and you open the page and all the people who are interested in you have signed the paper.
Wow. And
that's how it works. And that's how some people literally will go the whole 4 years and end up not acting a day in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Out of curiosity, did you have a lot of signatures on your paper?
I did, but I did not have the most signatures. I mean, some people would have 40 or 60 signatures. Wow. I don't care about the number. I just needed one, okay? So I had already signed, so I had maybe 20 something, but I didn't care. I already signed, with someone. I mean, I've known people who had 60 callbacks and who are no longer acting.
Yeah.
So it's apples and oranges.
Now, have you always been able to support yourself as an actor, or did you have to take lots of survival jobs?
I have, but you know what? I say that tongue in cheek because I have never had a job only because I am desperately lazy. I work really, really hard as an actor, but I was absolutely terrified to do anything else. So yes, I've always supported myself, and when I wasn't acting, I would just collect unemployment from all the weeks that I had put in as an actor. Mm-hmm. And I know there are actors in this room who understand where I'm coming from. That's the only reason I feel, if this were a room full of bankers, I could not say that. But actors, I feel very safe. But I just didn't, I was in New York. New York and LA for me would be overwhelming if I were not an actor. Mm. If I were not an actor, I probably would live somewhere else. That's just me personally. So when in New York, when I was just struggling, when it just wasn't coming my way, I just felt like, oh my gosh, at least I have about 8 more unemployment checks left. Or I could beg my sister for $200 just to carry me. And so, yeah, I've always supported myself as an actor. I've always been very fortunate because, listen, I'm the actor who just wants to work. I'm not the actor who wants to be a star at all. I mean, honestly. I'm not saying that for applause or whatever. I'm really not. I mean, I've worked in every theater, not every, but most of the major theater companies in this country. If ACT called me to do a production of Hecuba or, 7 Guitars at the Huntington Theater or whatever I had to do, I did. And I was happy to do it. I mean, are you kidding me? I was getting to work at my craft. That's all I wanted.
And since this is a SAG audience, can you tell us how you got your SAG card?
Yeah, I played the nurse in Substance of Fire with Timothy Hutton and Sarah Jessica Parker. Daniel Sullivan directed it, and I literally played nurse. And to show you how green I was, when I went in to do my scene, I did the scene, and it was, in hindsight, it was Timothy Hutton's close-up. But I did the scene, and then they said, okay, cut, okay, checking the gate. And I said, oh my God, it's over already. That was so easy. So I could go home. I didn't know that they had to then take a shot of the needle, take a shot of me. I said, are you kidding me?
And how are you at auditioning? I mean, because it's such a different skill from actually acting.
It depends on the audition. Sometimes I feel like I nailed it. I know I nailed it. Other times I feel like I really think I thought that was good and I really sucked. And then there are times that I'm really not good. And you know what? I can't really put a finger on when I'm not good. Sometimes I have to say with TV and film, I probably stink more than I do in theater. Because in TV and film, for me, you always have to come with a performance already ready-made, and I'm not really so wonderful at that. Because I come from the theater, I'm always in process. I haven't arrived at anything yet, and for me to automatically arrive at a decision, I'm not so good at it. You know, then I make choices that are just not necessarily nuanced. And I have to say that I'm not, if I were to put a finger on it, I'm not good at the auditions where the character is probably, which is ironic, more like someone people think I should play.
Really?
And I think it's because I resist it. This is a strong, grounded character, and I'm like, I'm sick of that. I'm gonna bring another color. I'm gonna bring something else to it. I'm not gonna be strong. I'm gonna make her quirky. I'm gonna make her light and airy, not just strong and grounded. And that's when I just stink. I just stink up the room. Yeah.
Have you ever gotten strange feedback from a casting director or a audition where you really thought you nailed it only to find out you hadn't? Or even vice versa, where you got the part and you thought you stunk?
Oh, yeah, that's happened a lot. You know, I got feedback once. I mean, just think off the top of my head, that said I was too quirky for a role. And I thought, well, what's wrong with that? I won't say who it was, but I thought, okay, so why can't she be quirky? And they said she was quirky and just wrong. It was just wrong.
The way you say it almost sounds like a good thing.
I like quirky.
Yeah.
I like that adjective, you know. It's not an adjective people usually use with me, and I feel like I am in my real life. But I thought it was an interesting quality to bring to the character, not that I consciously did that. And of course, back in the day, I used to do my own hair. So I used to braid it myself. I used to buy hair from his and hers hair company. The zigzag curl, the ZZ curl, and I would braid it into my hair myself, thinking I was slick, you know? The only problem is I would put too much hair on my head, and so by the time, you know, I finished, my hair would be like this big. So I got a lot of big hair feedback.
Yeah. At what point did you realize maybe you needed to take it down a notch?
You know what? When I saw myself on screen, and I thought, what was I thinking? But I have to say, with Doubt, I really didn't feel like I nailed that audition. Really?
Now, first I'm surprised to hear that Doubt was an audition. I thought it was offered to you.
Oh, no.
Really? Because Scott Rudin, I believe, said one of the reasons he wanted to do Doubt as a film was to get you that role.
Well, he should have called me up on the phone and told me that. I tell you. I mean, I had my Bible. I had a book from my pastor, God Chicks it was called. I was just like praying on my knees. And I auditioned here, and here's the thing. When you have any role like Doubt, which is, it's a fabulous role. People would say that it's a fabulous role. It's also a small role. There's no small roles, but it's not a role that has a lot of screen time. Let me phrase it like that. But it's a role for a Black actress in a great script. And there's not a lot of roles for us. So therefore, if there is a good role, whether it's not a lot of screen time or whatever, and it's opposite Meryl Streep, then every Black actress is going to be out there hunting it down, which is what happened. Every Black actress is out there hunting the role down. So I auditioned here, and my audition here, I liked. I said, okay, I like that. And then I got called back and I said, okay, it's down to me and one other person. Well, it was down to me and about 5 or 6 other actresses. And they flew us into New York, and we had to audition in 45-minute increments in full costumes, you know, hair, wardrobe. So you had, 5, 6 Mrs. Miller, Mrs. Mullers. Yeah. Walking around the studio, and you can hear everyone's audition in the room, and people clapping, going, "Oh, she knocked it out of the ballpark!" Yes. And and so I went in for my audition, and I was just so nervous. You know what? Actually, there is one. I said I couldn't put my finger on it, but I can. The one time I really, really suck at auditions if I'm scared. Nervous is good. Scared is not good. So I really was, I was very, very nervous and scared. I didn't like it so much. I didn't. So that was one audition that I thought, yeah.
So were you surprised then when they offered you the role?
Oh yeah, I was shocked. I cried. I'm not gonna lie, I cried. I cried.
Did you ever ask, what they saw in that audition? I mean, to some extent you don't want to, but...
Hell no, I just got the job! I don't care what you saw, because I felt like ultimately when I shoot the scene, it's going to be something entirely different anyway. I just got in the door. I just want to get in the door, and then, of course, there's 3.5 weeks of rehearsal of that, because it's based on the play. So, I got the role, and then literally I got a phone call from the AD half an hour later saying, "You have rehearsal with Meryl Streep tomorrow at 1:00 in the afternoon." And so for someone who, first of all, felt like they had a stinky audition and had no handle on the role, because it's really, really hard role. Had no handle, and then I have to rehearse with Meryl Streep.
And was that the first time you'd met her?
Oh, yeah.
I actually do want to come back to Doubt, but I want to talk about some of your stage work. You've been nominated for 3 Tonys, pretty much anytime you get back on a Broadway stage. But I believe you made your debut in August Wilson's 7 Guitars. How did that role come to you, and what was the experience like doing your first Broadway show?
Fantastic. Now, just, you know what? Every once in a while, I've been doing this for 23 years. And that I would put right up there with Doubt and probably The Help and a few other things where it's just perfect. Perfection has happened. But I auditioned, for it while I was doing a play at Trinity Rep. And that was one of those auditions that was magic, where I felt like I nailed it, and I did. Very rarely does that happen, and it did. And I remember it being everything that I thought it would be. And Broadway always is. TV and film, not necessarily for me. Ever. But Broadway, absolutely everything I could imagine. Opening night. I remember seeing my father in the audience. And I remember, opening night on Broadway is a mixed bag. It's usually not a responsive audience, but opening night. You know, their friends, their family, their critics have already come. I don't know, they're just subdued. So they're subdued, and it was only during the curtain call when people are giving you flowers, and then the cameras are rolling, and then all of these well-wishers and people like Vanessa Redgrave and Harry Belafonte and Barbara Streisand coming to see your work, and you've really never done anything like this before, and people really are coming to see you do what you do.
Yeah.
It's thrilling. See my father in the audience opening night, and he was beyond himself with tears in his eyes, you know. This man who'd never seen a play before, and it was August Wilson. It was everything that I could possibly imagine. And that's just the glamorous part. In terms of the work, it was everything I could imagine too, working with those actors. The great Lloyd Richards, August Wilson, you know, and I did the play for a year and a half. You know, so we had to, literally when you do a Broadway show for a year and a half and you tour with it first before it goes to New York, you're literally rehearsing it for a year also. Mm-hmm. So there's rewrites every single day. There was one day there was one act that was completely cut from the play. We'd do the play that night. We did it the night before. So we did another night with that scene entirely cut, and then 40 pages of rewrites.
Oh my God.
It was everything you could possibly imagine. It was everything that I learned about acting, I learned in Seven Guitars, and a lot of what I learned about being an adult and a person I learned during Seven Guitars.
And then you reunited with August Wilson for King Hedley II.
Yes.
For which you did win the Tony Award this time.
Yes.
And I just have to ask, what was that experience like when they call your name?
Oh, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. You know, I always compare it to, you know, I grew up so poor that I would have dreams of food and money. All my dreams were about food and money, just eating like loads of food, and I would eat in the dream, and then if I found money I would say, oh, it's money, and I knew that it was a dream, so I said, I'm gonna put all the money, I would shove it in my pockets, and I'm gonna put it in my hands, I'll put it every part of my body, so when I woke up, literally this is what I would think, when I wake up I would have all this money, and then I could buy more food, and I could pay the rent, and I could buy clothes, and then always I would wake up and I would just be doing this with my hands, and there was nothing, you know? And when they called my name for the Tonys, the first time it was Joan Allen. I'll never forget. And the reason why I remember that, first of all, because I love Joan Allen, but because she pronounced my name right. Oh. People usually don't pronounce my name right for some reason. But I remember thinking, it's one of those dreams when you wake up, you know, but it's reality.
Yeah.
You know, the money is in your hand. In Radio City Music Hall, I watched the Tonys every single year as a kid. And I was a geek, quirky geek. You know, and to be standing there, just poor girl from Central Falls, Rhode Island. Are you kidding me? With a Tony, and you know, and then your knees start shaking when you're in situations like that. You get kind of a panic attack, and you're breathing heavy, but you know, it's wonderful.
Well, last year you won your second Tony Award for the August Wilson revival of Fences opposite Denzel Washington. First, what's it like working with one of the greatest actors out there, also in a modern classic? Was it intimidating, or are you beyond getting nervous at this point?
I don't care who it is, I'm always nervous. Whether it's Denzel, great actors definitely make me nervous because I know I have to step up my game. But really, listen, I'll tell you what made me nervous. I mean, Denzel, yes, did make me nervous, but the thing about like actors like Denzel that make me nervous, to be perfectly honest, is I always feel like, don't have a huge ego, because then that makes me nervous. I'd rather just think about the work. I don't want to deal with ego and temper tantrums and catering to people, because then I always feel like it's like walking through it like just mud before you can actually just get to the work. But what really made me nervous was following the performances of Mary Alice and James Earl Jones.
Sure.
That's what made me nervous more than anything else. You know, Denzel is so regular. I mean, he really is. He's just regular that it was hard to feel too much intimidation from him. But I do get intimidated a lot.
Yeah.
A lot, all the time.
Do you remember the last person who intimidated you?
Who doesn't intimidate me? I'm absolute neurotic. Are you kidding me? Everything intimidates me. Probably Meryl Streep definitely intimidated me. I'm sorry, just, you know, when she would just not like if I said that, because she's also just the most beautiful, humble human being. But it just intimidated me because, once again, you know, it's if there's a great actor in a scene and a bad actor in the scene, who are you gonna watch?
So the second time they call your name for the Tony Award, is it even sweeter, or is there some pressure off because you've already got one, or how does it feel?
Hell no, there's no. Let me tell you something. Awards, and you've heard it from me, they are absolute. Here's a contradiction. It's a huge contradiction. Nobody ever describes what it's like being nominated for an award, winning an award. It's fantastic, okay? To have the award in your hand, it's great. When you get it, you almost never look at it. If there are people out there who, you know, like pick it up and look in the mirror, and when they're brushing their teeth and go, and they replay their, I really want to know who these people are, because I never look at my awards. Well, I looked at one of my awards the other day because my 16-month-old little girl broke it. My Drama Desk Award, but no, it was like, you know, it was cool. But
You've got two.
But the thing about the award thing is it's just very nerve-wracking. It just stinks. I'd just rather just take it off the table.
Yeah.
It introduces all these things that are so unhealthy for the actor spirit and the human spirit. You know, it's good to have a healthy dose of competitive spirit, especially self-competitiveness, you know. But the kind of competitiveness that comes with awards has nothing to do with the work. Mm-hmm. And it makes you too self-conscious of yourself. And, you know, vanity doesn't have any place in what we do. It's operating outside of yourself. Otherwise, you stop working. You feel like you've arrived somewhere when you always have to feel like you're in process. And the awards, what happens is you start thinking, it's like my niece when she was in the middle of circus in Las Vegas when she was 6 years old, and she had a breakdown at 6 years old, and it's just snot dripping out of her nose, and all she could scream was, "I want to win! I want to win! I want to win!" And that's just and that's just not. I mean, what does that ultimately mean? I mean, what does it, yeah. But what does it ultimately mean? I mean, I've had the awards, I'm telling you, I have a lot of them. And I'm telling you, every time I start a job, I feel like I'm starting from a clean slate. Mm-hmm. I feel like nothing I've done before even matters. I'm serious. It doesn't matter at all. I feel the same insecurities. I feel like somebody's going to find me out as the hack I am. Or I feel like I didn't deserve the award that I got. So really, you know, it's almost like you're an absurdist play or something. You're holding that award and you know you're full of shit. You know, you're holding it going, I like to thank my mother. And you know what? You probably see me do it at some point in my life. You know, get up there and you just get emotional. And it is fabulous. It's fabulous when people win awards. It is kind of a boon. Mm-hmm. And I think that people should be rewarded for their work. But the reward doesn't necessarily have to come with something as palpable as an Oscar, a Tony, or a Drama Desk, or whatever. I think sometimes the reward sometimes is, for me, I would just like to look at my work at certain times and just feel satisfied.
I would be hard pressed. You see, I would be hard pressed to feel that you weren't satisfied with a performance.
No.
You said neurotic actress, so. So I want to delve into your film career. I believe after Substance of Fire, your first on-screen role was in Steven Soderbergh's Out of Sight.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you've worked with him several times. I know you were in Traffic, and I think...
And he hired me because of my big hair.
Really? Because of the hair?
Yep. He said I was simple, too, but he liked the simplicity with the hair.
And then I know you were in Solaris, and I believe, don't you do an uncredited voice cameo in, like, Ocean's 11?
You don't know. People have said that to me. I'm like, my voice is in Ocean's 11?
It sounds like you. It really does.
Hey, listen, I haven't gotten a residual check, so
So you had big hair when you first met him, but how did you two first meet, and why do you think you work so well together that you keep teaming up again?
Because we're both low-key and calm. I like that. I like calm. You know, because I just feel so like a storm inside. I'm one of those people that looks really calm on the outside, but I'm just so nervous all the time. I like that he's calm. He's really laid back. And I like that he's simple. I always feel like his direction is simple, on point, and then he moves on. That works for me. Mm-hmm. I like simplicity. I always use the David Mamet quote, you know, if an actor is on stage with a cat, who are you going to watch, the actor or the cat? You're going to watch the cat because the cat is just being a cat, you know? And so I like simplicity, and I like the fact that he encourages that, so. Mm-hmm.
I think many people, myself included, really took note of you on screen in 2002. You had two great roles, first in Far From Heaven, beautiful film. And then you had one scene in Antoine Fisher where you had very little dialogue and you were just fantastic. And I remember people saying, like, she could get an Oscar nomination for this, and you received an Independent Spirit Award nomination. Were you surprised how people responded to that role?
Yeah, I was. I was really surprised at that one. You know, I was, once again, just happy to be in that movie with Denzel directing it, you know. I'm always surprised at any reaction I get. I was surprised at Doubt. I'm surprised at The Help. I'm always surprised. I always this is not good. I am not a proponent of this. It's not healthy. But I always have huge amount of fear how my work is going to be perceived. It's like I think it may be the Juilliard training in me. The Juilliard was so much about what's not working, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because what they do is they say, we know what you do well. We don't want to look at that. We want to see what you don't do so well, and we're going to work on that to make you better, to make you stretch and transform. That's what I focus on a lot of times. What's not working, what didn't happen, what could have happened, and what I could have fought for. And I focus so much on that I'm always surprised at how my work is perceived. Becoming a bit of a one-scene wonder between Antoine Fisher and Doubt.
Mm-hmm. Had you seen the play Doubt before you auditioned for the movie?
No, I was doing a play at the time. So I was, you know, when you're doing another play, you're on the same schedule, it's almost impossible.
And you've talked about the audition process, obviously. Once you were actually playing the role, it's such an interesting role because it's a mother, I should say, who is, I don't know if I want to say, like, sort of choosing to ignore a situation where her son might be being sexually abused. How did you sort of prepare for that character, understand that character, step into her skin? She was very difficult for me. I always feel like if I'm not playing a human being, then
I'm not doing my job. And so when I looked at that human being, I just did not get her. For me, doubt where it could fail, I always look at where it could fail, is a lot of these characters could be allegorical. They could be mouthpieces for a larger message. And I didn't want her to fall into that trap. Which, a lot of, there were some people who said, oh, you could play a cold. I don't understand that. I don't know just people who are just cold. To me, that's not a choice. Mm-hmm. So I had to make her justifiable in her decision. That was very difficult. And so the only thing I could think of is someone who has no choice. I had to create a woman who had no choice, but to say, I am going to leave my son in the hands of this man who could possibly be molesting him. I'm going to change that in my head to make it look like he's mentoring him, because I already know he's gay. And, she doesn't understand homosexuality. A lot of black people don't understand homosexuality, especially in 68, I think the film is shot in. It was not shot in 68, but it takes place in 68. That I didn't see her as a woman who had kind of a hip understanding of homosexuality. Mm-hmm. So I just thought she probably thought, okay, well, if he's helping him with his sexual discovery and all of that, and that's my only choice, that's the only man who could possibly be a positive image in his life, then I'm going to go for it. Mm-hmm. This is the only way I could keep my son alive. This is it. I always feel like with an actor, you have to make a strong choice. And the choice always has to be that there is no other choice. I think that's how we operate in our lives. I think that if we felt like we had other choices, that we could take them. But the only thing that we have is what we know. And I think the only thing that she knew to do at that time was to leave her son in that school. Mm-hmm. I think it's other people's perception that she was doing something negative.
And for that role of Mrs. Miller, sorry, it's Mueller in the play, so I always trip up on that. You received a slew of nominations, most notably a Golden Globe nomination, 2 SAG Award nominations, and of course the Oscar nomination. Mm-hmm. But I think my favorite moment was at the SAG Awards when Meryl Streep won. And of course she blurted out, she thanked the gigantically gifted Viola Davis, my God, someone give her a movie. How unexpected was that? How great was that? To have one of the best actresses in the world praising you that way.
Hey, let me tell you, I was princess that whole year. People really have to understand, I struck gold with doubt. That's gold. How often does that happen? A lot of people would say that that's a cameo role. And here I am, I'm coming in, opposite Meryl Streep, and I'm getting not just the accolades, but I was able to open up my career and really work. Actors understand that. Mm-hmm. People would put the mic in my mouth during that whole, awards period, and they would say, well, is it just an honor to be nominated? It's like, hell yeah, it's an honor just to be nominated. Are you kidding me? And to have work? When 95% of actors are unemployed at any given time and only 1% make $50,000 a year or more and work constantly, yes, it's an honor. I felt like I struck gold. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Even if she didn't say anything, even if she didn't mention my name, it would have been wonderful. The fact that she did was just, icing on the cake.
I guess it's a little, I don't know if ironic is the right word, but someone did give you a great lead role in a movie, and now you're Meryl's biggest competition for the Oscar this year.
I am?
Yes, you are. I've already read the headlines, it's down to Meryl versus Viola. So, which of course brings us to The Help. based on Catherine Stockett's fantastic book. Probably everyone here has read it. Had you read the book, and how did the role of Aibileen Clark come to you?
I did read the book, and I thought it was really good. I thought it was fabulous. And I tell people this story all the time. I feel like I'm being redundant, but I read it and said, I'm going to option it. I'm going to produce it. I'm going to be Aibileen, and I'm going to give all this work to Black actresses. And that didn't happen because Tate Taylor had already optioned it. And then after that, literally, I was having a party at my house. Me and Tate Taylor, we have a mutual friend. And he yelled at me from across the room while we were eating. He said, "Oh, a friend of mine is looking for you to play the lead in his movie called The Help, Viola." So, and that's where it all started.
And what were those initial, I believe it was a meeting, obviously not an audition with Tate. What was the initial meeting like? Because he says you kind of put him through the ringer a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I did. I did, you know. Listen, you're playing a maid in 1962 Mississippi, uneducated, strong dialect. I put him through the ringer. Because it could be a great failure. And not just a great failure in terms of the work. I'm really putting my integrity on the line. And, you know, I just had to know that he was coming correct. I really did. Because I always feel like when you're reluctant with something and when you're really neurotic about it, you put people through the ringer anyway. That's just what you do. So I really had to feel like we were on the same page, because I just always feel, and I felt this in the book, I at least felt like Aibileen and Minnie were people, that I could recognize them. I could put my hands on them. I could recognize moments in their lives that were like me or my grandmother or my mother. And I wanted to keep it that way. And I'm always mistrustful or distrust of people who have those characters in their hands, because I feel like they squelch all that subtlety. And then what you're left with is an archetype. Something very gimmicky. And let me tell you something. Gimmicky works for a lot of people. It doesn't work for me. So I had to feel like he was coming correct, and especially with Aibileen, especially, not so much with Minnie, not so much with any other character. Well, of course it's my character, because of course it's going to be about me, but for me, in a book, you have to take out all the internal dialogue, because, you know, that's not going to work in movies. So you take out all the internal dialogue, and then what are you left with? Aibileen is 95% internal dialogue, because she's quiet. And so then what you're left with could very well be someone that you've seen in every other movie about the South, and she could be a mammy. Even more so than Minnie and all of the other characters. It's in that internal dialogue that you see her humor, you see her intelligence, you see her observations, and then they're cut, and then what do you get? So I had to believe that he was coming correct. Just because he had the rights, to me, did not make him necessarily capable of directing the piece.
And it should be pointed out, he had only one other feature film to his credit, which was a very pretty much unseen, very different type of movie than The Help.
But you know what? I didn't even care about that. I could care less. I don't care if he did absolutely nothing before that time. I think experience sometimes is fabulous and sometimes it's not. To me, it's perception with someone who is from a completely different experience than me. It's perception more so than anything else. And to me, because, hey, I know some fantastic actors who've never worked a day in their lives, and they have chops. So I don't put a lot necessarily on experience. I wanted to make sure, I wanted to make sure what his perception was, first of all, of Black women, and more specifically of Aibileen.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really was neurotic about that. Once again, that word neurotic.
Was there anything in particular he said to convince you, or was it just a conversation you guys had when you decided to take this leap of faith?
I like the fact that he just listened. You know, sometimes people walk in and they're dictators,
mm-hmm.
and they already feel like they know. I think for actors and directors, as soon as you walk in and you feel like you know, you're screwed.
Yeah.
That there's always an element of surprise that should happen. There's always an element of something in some room that you didn't walk in as a character. And as a director, it's the same way. That an actor can bring in something about that character that you did not necessarily know. And you have to be open to that. It's a collaborative art. Listen, I can't go into a room and create on my own. I need a director, a writer, material. I need all of those things. And so people have to understand that. I like the fact that he listened, and he especially took 13 pages of rewrites for me. That's big. First of all, the fact that I even rewrote anything, because usually I'm like, you rewrite it. But the fact that he even just took it spoke volumes about
mm-hmm.
him. It spoke volumes for me. That's what changed. And also the fact that he was from the South, the fact that he's just open.
Yeah. Would you mind telling us which scenes it was that you specifically rewrote?
What scene didn't I rewrite? But I really, really felt strongly about anything about tree lore. Because, the whole book, it took the whole book for you to realize the impact of her child's death. And I only had a few minutes.
Yeah.
So what do? And so I really almost had to take liberties, because I had to take liberties to make sure people really felt the impact that this child, the loss of the child, because first of all, listen, a mother losing her child, anyone losing their child, a father losing it, it's the worst. It ranks up there as the worst, okay? But also women of that generation, because their dreams were in their children, because they themselves had none.
Mm-hmm.
And so now he's gone, what's left? And I just felt really strongly that you had to be introduced to this woman who, if you saw her in the street, you wouldn't even notice her. She is beautifully, wonderfully simple and ordinary. Now, for a lot of actors, who, I shouldn't say that. There are some people who probably would want some more grandstanding. I felt strongly opposed to that. Mm-hmm. Because when you read the book, that is absolutely what you do not get from Aibileen. She is very simple. And so I felt like you really had to establish this person who was going through the motions in her life. Just going through the motions. Child is gone, went back to work only because she had to. And the only real joy that she gets in her life is Mae Mobley in the book, and her friendship with Minnie.
It's interesting, actually, you mentioned Tree Lord. I talked to Octavia Spencer recently, who's so fabulous as Minnie. And I asked her what her hardest scene was in the film. And she said it actually isn't one of my scenes, what you would think of as my character scenes. She says it's when Viola gives the speech about her son. And she said that was for her the hardest scene to shoot, because you're so good in it, and it pains her to see you in pain. Mm-hmm. And that you were just so sublime in that moment. Mm-hmm. It was really hard for her to get through the scene.
That's good.
That's fantastic. What was it like shooting with this fantastic ensemble of mostly women?
Felt fantastic, I mean, you're not always on the same page as actors. I think that that's probably been almost a heartbreak of mine since I've started the business that there's so many things that invade the purity of the work. You know, the struggle, the hustle, the competitiveness, the viciousness that's out there, and jealousy, because it's such a business about deprivation. And then when you enter a job and everybody's not in it for the same reason. Some people are in just for the money, for the car, for the first class trailer, the double banger, you know. And this is one of the first times, doubt was another time, when everybody was on the same page. There was no ego, none, from Sissy Spacek, Allison Janney, nobody. And I think a part of that, a lot of it was, first of all, the personalities of the group, the personality, the character of these women, who was at the helm of the ship, which is Tate Taylor, who is just really country. Being in Greenwood, Mississippi, in a small town, in the heat, and only needing each other, not being on a soundstage in Los Angeles or Vancouver and going back home to your 5-star hotel. But also the absolute fear that we were going to screw up, because the level of expectation, of people who read the book and loved it, the people who read the book and hated it, the people who did not read the book and hated it. The African American community who just hated it, you know, they just hated the idea of it. The people who actually experienced this, grew up with these surrogate mothers who said, I just want you to get these women right. The women who actually were these women. And then, of course, the highest expectation, which is yourself. High expectation. Expectation sucks, okay? The only expectation that does not suck is your own, but everything else sucks. It just freezes you up. But I think it's all of that that just made it right, you know? And, you know, and with women, especially sometimes, with TV and film more so, not so much with theater, but sometimes in theater, we can get into the pretty thing.
Yeah.
The pretty thing is, I mean, I get it. There's a part of me that gets it, but because I didn't win the Miss Central Falls Recreation Contest when I was 8 years old, you know, I'm not vying for any beauty queen status. It's maybe because of that it's only, I think, after I came to LA that I understood that people felt like that's a part of their work.
Right.
How pretty you are. You know, I always say that, you know, every once in a while, back in the day, I would watch What Not to Wear on TLC. I know they could be, you know, that could be annoying to some people, but I would watch it just to see these women just kind of come out of themselves, you know. But it's so interesting that so many people don't really know how to dress, right? We really don't. We dress for different reasons. You would never know that by watching movies. The first thing actors do when they get on the set is they find the, you know, wardrobe, you know, person, the costume designer. And I don't care if they're playing the homeless woman on the street who's covered with pee and poop. They're like, okay, I only look good in A-line dresses. And a lot of the wardrobe and costume design, they'll go along with that. And then it becomes hours and days of dressing to look good for yourself and not transforming into the character. It's like has nothing to do with you. What if your character is a really, really bad dresser? So I felt really great about the help because the first thing we had to do was we all had to gain weight.
Really?
It was not about vanity. It just wasn't. And if it was for any characters, because it was woven into the fabric of the character. The pretty thing and, you know, what is so-and-so wearing? If so-and-so got their hair colored, then why am I not getting my hair colored? You know what I'm talking about. That none of the vanity issues came into play. And that's what's so wonderful about working with women when that is removed from it. Because then we can really relate to each other for who we are without putting all those external factors on ourselves and get down to the business of just creating characters, if that makes any sense.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Your chemistry with Octavia is so fantastic. Was that instantaneous? I mean, she's hard not to love.
Instantaneous. She's hard not to. She really is hard not to love, and we're very much Aibileen and Minnie in real life. We get on that phone and she said, "Did you hear what so and so said? I can't believe I'm gonna call him up and say da 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 da." And I'm like, "Now, Octavia."
Another one of already just one of my favorite actresses in the world is Jessica Chastain.
Oh, yeah.
Who, I mean, she's fantastic. And I remember you spoke on her behalf at the Elle Women in Film, and she was really overwhelmed by that. But you two don't really have any scenes together.
No,
I mean, you
don't.
Kind of, you never actually like speak in scenes. I guess you're in a couple scenes together.
Yeah.
But she really kind of considers you a mentor. And how did that friendship happen?
I'm trying to figure out how that friendship happened. That's another odd thing. It's like people will say, I consider her to be a mentor and all of that. And it's strange because you live your life and the people who think that you're their mentor, you've never met. But I met her on the set for the first time of the set in Mississippi, in Greenwood, Mississippi. At the table read. We had a table read. We went there, we had to be there a month beforehand to rehearse. And she was fantastic, by the way, in the table read. She was just fantastic. And I knew she was from Juilliard. We had mutual friends. And that's how it happened, just like that, We all stepped into each other's lives in the help, and we couldn't be any more different. We couldn't be any more different, all of us. It's just miraculous in that way.
You mentioned earlier how there were some people who responded negatively to the book or to the very idea of a movie. Were you sort of prepared for that backlash?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And, I mean, how do you respond when people... Aibileen is such a amazingly well-rounded character, such a complex character. Just the fact that she's a maid, is that what seems to upset people?
Well, I couldn't speak for people. I would assume that would be it. The dialect, the fact that, I think it's a lot of things that Hollywood is still revisiting the story of maids, and there's not a diversity of stories about African American lives. And I have to tell you, I tossed and turned a lot about it. I mean, a lot. And not only about accepting the role, I tossed and turned after I got the role of how I would respond when I got those questions. Only because I'm so aware when I'm full of crap. And there's a certain amount of everyone when they're put up on a stage like this that they're full of crap, because you got to come up with an answer for something. So and just in life we're full of crap anyway at any given point. But the one thing that I arrived at was, I think that it's absolutely within your right to not respond to this material. I think that you're absolutely justified. That is the beauty of what we do, is that it's very subjective. That there are some people who don't like actors that I absolutely love, and vice versa. That I ultimately have to understand that I'm in the front lines. Now, I happen to be in the audience with people who are in the front lines too, or maybe not. But what I mean by that is I get the scripts. I know what's out there. I've lived the life. As Cicely Tyson said, I know the road. And I will tell you that Aibileen absolutely is a fabulous role. She really is. I mean, in terms of what's out there. And that's the thing that was the pull, that there's something here that I can bite on. There's something I could sink my teeth into. But it's a maid in 1962 Mississippi, and she's got a thick dialect, and she's a maid, and she takes care of this little white girl, and, you know, and all of those things. What do? At some point, you have to make a choice and hope that the integrity of your work shines through any negativity. And that's what I always say. Because listen, I always say that I could have gotten a role that doesn't meet any of those so-called stereotypes and been a really bad actor. What do you want?
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, I'm sure that you want a role that's not a stereotype and, you know, fabulous work within that. But ultimately, I just have to believe that my work transcends any stereotypical image that's on the page. That it is my job as an actor to humanize a character. You know, someone just recently said, I think it was the Hollywood Reporter roundtable discussion, and you know, once again, you know, when you have to think on your feet, you don't think of things at the time. But, you know, Charlize Theron, who's just fantastic, she was talking about the difference between being sympathetic and empathetic. Okay. And she says you really want people to understand you, ultimately, at the end of the day. And I do believe that, but I even take it a step further. I do believe that people need to understand you as a character, understand what makes you tick. But I do think that they have to feel something for you. They don't have to like you, but feel something when you leave the theater. Your heart in some way has to be convicted. That's our job as actors. And so I felt like this was my opportunity to do it for Aibileen.
And we love her so much. I remember the first time I saw the movie, there's a very simple moment, maybe it wasn't simple, sorry, I shouldn't assume, when you're running to Minnie's house, you trip and you fall. And the gasps in the audience were so audible, like people just did not want you to be hurt. And even just that simple fall, they were so traumatized by it. It's such an amazing role, it's such an amazing performance. I'm curious, has it really changed your career? I mean, are you getting...
Oh, well...
I was gonna say, are you getting like some great offers now? What's next?
Well, I can't really say that because I don't know why that gets me in trouble. But so I can't really say what's next. I will say it has changed my career. It has. It's changed my career. But I'll move on from that because I'm trying to not get in trouble. But I will say this, it's changed my career and mindset in a lot of ways, because I just feel after this, I just feel like I want to be in more of a position of power. You know, I think it's just the onslaught of criticism, whether they're positive or negative, that it's awakened this thing in me that has made, and being 46, because listen, I am middle-aged. I have parked the car in middle age. And so I just feel like now more than never is the time to create roles for me that I've always dreamed about playing, because I know that when I went to Juilliard, when I first went to Juilliard, I actually did not think that there was any difference between me, I could say her name because we love each other, me and my classmate Michelle O'Neill. I say Michelle O'Neill because she's a fantastic actress. And she's a blonde, blue-eyed girl from Idaho, Boise, Idaho. And she was strong and grounded, and she just fantastic actress. And I just always felt like we were kindred spirits, you know? And I just thought, okay, whatever role is out there for her, it's either going to be me and her and me and her and me, you know? And I didn't realize until I graduated Juilliard that there was a difference. And we're both 46, you know? And not necessarily Shelley, but the fact that she's white and I'm black, that there actually is a different set of rules that that we play by. I didn't think that there was a difference. I really didn't. And now there's a part of me that feels like the person I was at Juilliard, that feels like I don't see the difference, is being awakened. That I want the John Ford movie. I want the grand sweeping drama where just the land in the background. You know, it's like, you know, the Linda Hamilton role, yes. Even though my husband said, V, now you got pain in your knees. You think you want to do an action role now? I said, yes, Julius, I do, you know, but I want to do, I want what I want. You know, if at least I could try. That's what it's awakening me. And at least people are now taking notice, which, you know what? The only difference is, I always say to actors, is that I've been in the line a long time. That's the only difference. Really, the help, I mean, I love the help. I love the character. I've been in line for 23 years. That's what it is, so people are taking notice. You know?
To that end of creating some roles for yourself, I have a question from the audience. Please forgive me if I mispronounce anyone's name. Ernestine Phillips, hope I got that right. Wants to know if you could talk about your production company that you started to create work for Black actresses, and how does one get involved?
How does one get involved? There's so much work for you now. It's my husband and I, our production company, multi-ethnic production company committed to excellence in theater, film, and TV. We decided to make the mission statement very simple. And as simple as it is, it's very unique in excellence and multi-ethnic. But how do you get involved? I guess,
is it still
talk to me.
Is it Mandinka?
It's called Juvie. I changed the name Mandinka to Juvie. It's a play on me and my husband's name, Julius and Viola, and also kind of juvenile, even though Juvie kind of may have negative thoughts. You know, I don't want Black people to think, you talk about that criminal element. But it's Juvie. I thought it was clever. But how did you talk to me?
Yeah.
You talk to me. That's how you got. We're just so grassroots. We're, you know, trying to get material now. I mean, that's what you need to start with, is material, you know. And I'm telling you, I will, especially my husband too, because he, you know, me and him, we do it together. Is we will accept material from anybody. Especially anybody who feels like they have a great story to tell, because it starts with a great story, you know, and that's what we need as any actor needs. But especially because film and TV and theater has to reflect America. And so often you're looking at movies where you're not even seen. I mean, usually I'm like the only representative. So I'm looking for diverse scripts like that. So, I mean, see me. I don't know really how to answer that question, but see me.
I have another question.
Oh, my husband.
From LaShawn Ellis. What process do you go through when developing your characters? And this is what I should have asked. Do you stay in character between takes?
Oh, I could not stay in character. I mean, Miss Tyson stays in character. She's so fantastic. I wish I had that that would drive me crazy. What I do is, it's always the same thing I do, is I start with the text. I think, for me, this is my opinion now. I really have to reiterate this. The number one mistake a lot of people make is they don't start with the text. They start with who they want the character to be. If the text says you are a 51-year-old Black woman in 1962 Mississippi with a 6th grade education, then you are a 51-year-old Black woman in Mississippi with a 6th grade education. So I always start with the text and I read it over and over again. I listen to all the facts, 51, 6th grade education, maybe a little bit this, that, whatever. And then I listen to everything the characters say about me. Because if there's a point of view of the character and they say, look at Aibileen, she's walking funny and she's on the floor, she's groveling in the dirt, then guess what? I'm groveling in the dirt. So I look, all those are facts. And then I do a bio. And then I always say this, because a lot of actors go, objectives, you need objectives. You need objectives and obstacles and tactics. And I believe all of that. But I first believe that you have to start with a need. Because I think that if you just start with what the character wants without what the character needs to fill themselves up, then it looks too earnest. That there's always a driving need in a human being's life, and that's what makes us go for what we want. If that makes any sense.
It's the basic, what are
and
they
that
want?
always takes a lot of time, by the way.
Another question about preparation. And also, what's been your favorite role and why?
You know what? I would have to say Doubt was my favorite role. Only because it was really, really hard to figure her out. And when I finally got it, I was like, wow. It took me months. I loved it. I loved locking myself in the room and closing the curtains and I loved it. And I loved feeding off other actors and I had them give me their opinion. And yeah, it was fabulous.
Question from Takara Clark. In an industry where it's all about the last person standing, what do you feel has been your competitive edge through the years that's allowed your longevity in the industry? And has it changed?
Absolutely, it's changed. I always say the reason I became an actor is not the reason I stay an actor. It's always constantly being redefined, especially because there's so many invaders to the purity of the work. Different things have come into play. Maybe I'll get a job or work with a director and it's renewed my faith. Sometimes it's just something that has nothing to do with acting. It's to do with me getting married, and just me feeling happy and feeling reinvigorated. Mostly, I have to say, my faith in God, just praying and believing that He's going to keep blessing me in my career. And the love of the work. The love of the work, keeps me in it. Something always reminds me that I love it.
Question from, Dustin Brown? Is it Deucin? Oh, hey there. Dusan, what a nice name. From Mrs. Viola Davis. At what point in your career did you not have to be submitted for a role, but instead the scripts were submitted to your agent for your consideration? And how long before this happened?
That's a very good question. I have to say that a lot of times I get offered roles, but a lot of times I have to audition. Or lately I haven't had to audition. But Aibileen, I auditioned for Aibileen. I auditioned for Doubt.
Even though Tate wanted you for the movie?
Yeah.
He made you audition?
Yes, he did. And it was an 11-page audition, and I was right in the middle of rehearsing Fences.
Oh.
But it's fine. I was very happy with it. It was all right.
That was one you felt good about? I
felt good about it, yeah. It ebbs and flows.
A question from Naima. Oh, great names. Hi, Viola. I remember you in Hurricane at Crossroads Theater. Phenomenal. Can you talk to us about your process and the transition back and forth from camera to stage and stage to camera? Because you do consistently work in both mediums.
Yep, I do. Although I did Fences in the time before that, I hadn't been on stage for 6 years. I did Intimate Apparel before that time, which I did for 6 months. But I don't feel like it's a transition. I think that's how I transition. One actress came up to me the other day and said, so, the way Hollywood is for Black actresses, she was very charming, actually. She said, wait, Hollywood is Black actresses. I'm thinking about never doing TV or film. And I was thinking, you want to make a living? But you never think of, well, actors know that when you get a call for an audition, you think, okay, that's TV. Okay, well, that's film, that's theater. It's all acting. Mm-hmm. I go with it. I don't see the difference. I am in it for the work, literally. Not all the time, but most of the time I'm in it for the work.
A question from Susan C. In your reading of scripts over the years, have you seen the role of Black female characters change?
It's sometimes I want to get questions about my hair. but I mean, that's not going to happen. So it really is not going to happen. But you know what? Here's the thing about that. Every time I think, wow, this is different, then it's not. So not really. Mm-hmm. Not really, and not really. I could expound on that. And it's, the thing about it is, I'm still waiting for the color thing to change. Mm-hmm. And, it's that, not to be full of crap, like I just said, but, you have to be the change you want to see. Is, back in the day, if I did see, every once in a while, I would see a great role for a Black actress in an indie. I remember when I first started acting in New York for indie film, and I was like, oh my, this is a fantastic role for a Black actress. But it would be someone who was mulatto or Hispanic, mixed or whatever. And I was like, well, why does it have to be that? Mm-hmm. Or it could be that. That's fabulous if it is that. But there's still a sense that you get that, that color has something to do with it, the fact that you're maybe not really, really skinny and, brighter. That you suddenly get relegated to roles that have absolutely certain adjectives attached to it. Mm-hmm. Then I'm still waiting for that to change, and and then my husband, who's been like the best inspiration in my life, literally the best, because he always reminds me, well, V, you're cute. Why don't you change something? You do it. You don't have to do that. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to do it, then, so that, in my opinion, no, that's the answer to the question, but it doesn't have to stay that way. And I guess that we all have to do our part, right? Whatever control we get, we have to do our part. That's why me and my husband started a production company.
Have you often gone out for roles that maybe weren't specifically written for a Black actress?
Yes, I have.
Was Eat, Pray, Love specifically? I remember reading the book.
Eat, Pray, Love, that character was not in the book.
Exactly.
I don't know if she was specifically written Black. Mm-hmm. I don't remember when I first read the script. But, once again, you have to understand there are 500,000 actors or so in Los Angeles. I don't know how many in New York. I may be overshooting that. But when you look on screen, you have aspirations about what you want to do, of course. And you have dreams of, okay, as soon as I start working, those are the roles I want to play. You don't really feel like there are any obstacles in your way. And then when you realize that there are and why they're there, it's always surprising to you. Now, Cicely Tyson, who had great roles back in the day, Sounder, Autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, that's what got me in there, okay? I wanted roles like that. But I have to tell you, looking at Meryl Streep and Glenn Close and Jane Alexander and Colin Dewhurst, I mean, I could go back and forth. That's why I went to New York. Those are the actors that inspire me. I felt like, I want to do that. Why can't I do Long Day's Journey into Night? Why couldn't I do a role like Testament, like Jane Alexander, or, Kramer versus Kramer, like Meryl Streep? Why can't I be, the estranged wife who, doesn't really feel like she has any maternal instincts? Why can't I not do that because of color? Mm-hmm. So that's been my biggest challenge, because, and see, once again, going back to when I suck in auditions, because in my mind, I'm not what people perceive me to be. And so when I come into auditions, I don't do that sometimes, and that's what screws me up. If that makes any sense.
Oh, sure. It's funny you talk about being intimidated by other great actors. Mike O'Malley was here fairly recently. He played your husband in Eat, Pray, Love. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he said that he was so intimidated. He's working with you. He's playing a character that wasn't in the book, and he's just this guy like spouting funny lines, but that you instantly put him at ease.
Oh, I'm glad I did. Yeah. I'm glad I did. Mm-hmm.
The next question is, who does your hair?
And you know what? I was going to answer that when I was like,
go ahead. People want to know.
Yes.
Is it an honest question?
It's not on the card, but I'm honestly asking.
Jamaica Wilson does my hair. I love Jamaica.
And we have a question from Anthony. How was it working with the kid in that last scene in The Help? It was such a stellar performance and so powerful. And what do you remember most from the Help experience?
Sweat. That last scene was about sweat. And I ate a lot. I bribed a lot. I bribed that kid. My husband and I would buy goldfish and Dora the Explorer watches, and you have no idea what it's like working with a 3-year-old. And they were twins, yeah. And the cutest. Can I just tell you, with their little bellies, and you just want to squeeze them, but then if you've read the book, Mae Mobley is a character.
Yeah.
She's a fully realized character, okay? So you just can't be the cute kid that does a cute little look and then walk off. You really have to hit your mark or whatever. Try getting a 3-year-old to hit their mark. And then in the middle of a take say, Mommy, I gotta go potty. And then you have to coax them, into saying the line. And that requires you stepping outside of character and being Viola, saying, okay, can you say your line? Say your line. Say your line. Could say it once for me. Just say it once. And then stepping back into your character to go, you as kind, you as smart, you as once again. I wish I had something better to say, but it was like work. That last scene was work. And I'm happy for the experience, and but working on The Help was work. It really was. It was work. It's work I don't like playing characters that people already know and they have an expectation of. I don't like it. I'd rather have a character that where I could say it now that I know Aibileen probably better than most people, but I'd rather have the character where it's like I'm the only one who knows the character. Because I don't like anyone putting anything on my performance before they've even walked into the theater, because people don't understand that the audience is a part of the collaboration too. Mm-hmm. And this is not a part of the collaboration being closed off. So I felt like it was work with the help, but it reminds you of why you became an actor. That ultimately that's the only thing you have working for you. Everything else is up in the air. Because let me tell you, this could have been a catastrophic failure. So it was fantastic in that way. And being in Mississippi in the heat with that history and all of those women, it was an experience of a lifetime.
I have a question from Ayani. Is that correct? Is that you? Hi. Hi, I just moved here from Katy, Texas. I'm 8, and I want to know, do you have a boy or a girl?
Oh, I have a girl. I have a little girl. She's 16 months.
Oh.
Yeah.
And from Burton Banks, the actor's life has many ups and downs. Can you share with us how you were able to make it through the difficult periods? Sort of addressed this a little bit earlier, but...
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever thought of quitting? Gotten frustrated with the business side of things?
Oh, probably, but you know what? I thought about quitting for 2 seconds, and then I thought there is nothing else I could do. I mean, literally, like I told you, I'm like lazy, and I just nothing else that I could do. So I was like, damn, I got to stick with it. But you know what? You know what's hard? The hard part about being an actor is the rejection. We're not built for rejection as human beings. When we're rejected in life, we run to the therapist's office. I mean, come on. But in acting, you have to make peace with that rejection on a day-to-day basis. And then when you're going through your life issues and that's not going well, then it's double rejection. I have felt that way a lot in New York too. Just struggling to make the rent and living in apartments with 2-3 roommates with mice and roaches and oh gosh. And then coming to LA. I mean, the thing about LA is I just came to LA with a job because there was no other way I was going to come to LA without a job. This was not a place I wanted to be without a job. To me, this is finishing school. I got my training wheels in New York and I went to finishing school here, and I was a crappy driver. I still kind of am. I totaled a car, my first job here in Los Angeles, just totaled it, plowed into this guy. And the jaws of life literally came and had to, I mean, it sounds much more dramatic. I mean, I got a little whiplash, but I said, I can't do LA. After that, I said, I just can't do it. I can't make it here. I can't do it. I had anxiety attacks. Serious panic attacks where I couldn't deal with the life, the physical structure of Los Angeles. Then I met my husband. Like, once again, things always happen to revive you and rejuvenate you. And then work happened. And it revives you and rejuvenates you. Praying rejuvenates me. Praying, just believing that it's just going to happen. Faith, even when I can't put my hands on it. I don't know. It's like the thing about acting is it's all faith-based. Mm-hmm. There's no way you could sit with an actor and say, this is how you should do it. This is how you should work. And this is how you get work. And this is how you keep work. And, there is no way. Everything is up in the air. You are flying by the seat of your pants in this business, and So there's almost no way for me to answer that question except to say that there are things in my life that I find to personally give me life. It's my faith, it's my husband, it's some family members. And
I'm so glad that you kept the faith and you give so many other people such inspiration and faith. And I just want to thank you for taking this time to be with us. And thank you guys for being a great audience. Thank you so much.